Paul Heyman just committed the ultimate act of betrayal, and what Roman Reigns is planning next is going to shatter everything you thought you knew about loyalty in professional wrestling. That's right. The tribal chief, the man who built an empire on the foundation of Paul Heyman's counsel, has been stabbed in the back by the very person who helped orchestrate his record-breaking championship reign. And now, Roman is doing the unthinkable. He's forming an alliance so shocking, so absolutely mind-blowing, that it's going to leave the entire wrestling world in absolute chaos. We're talking about Roman Reigns joining forces with Jon Moxley and Jimmy Uso to take down Paul Heyman's new faction. Yes, you heard that right. The same Jon Moxley who walked away from WWE and never looked back. The same Jimmy Uso who was cast out of the bloodline like yesterday's trash. These three warriors, who have every reason to hate each other, are now united by one common enemy, Paul Heyman. But before we dive into this explosive alliance, let me ask you something. Do you think Jon Moxley would ever return to WWE, even for revenge? Drop your answer in the comments below because this is about to get insane. Let's rewind for a second and talk about how we got here. Paul Heyman, the so-called wise man, the master manipulator who stood beside Roman Reigns through thick and thin, has apparently been playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. Recent reports suggest that Heyman has been secretly building his own faction behind Roman's back. We're talking about a group of hungry, vicious competitors who are ready to dethrone the tribal chief and reshape the entire landscape of professional wrestling. Think about this for a moment. Paul Heyman, the man who orchestrated Roman's rise to becoming the most dominant Universal Champion in history, has been plotting his downfall this entire time. Every whisper in Roman's ear, every strategy session, every perfectly crafted promo, it was all part of a long-term plan to eventually overthrow the very man he claimed to serve. The betrayal runs deep. Heyman didn't just walk away. He didn't just choose someone else. He systematically dismantled everything Roman built, recruited warriors who have axes to grind with the tribal chief, and created a faction designed specifically to exploit every weakness, every vulnerability in Roman's armor. This isn't just business. This is personal. This is calculated. This is the kind of betrayal that makes blood boil and legends seek vengeance. Now, here's where things get absolutely nuclear. Roman Reigns, faced with the greatest threat of his career, had to make an impossible choice. Does he stand alone and fight Heyman's faction with the pride and ego that has defined his championship reign? Or does he swallow that pride, acknowledge his vulnerabilities, and seek help from the most unlikely sources imaginable? Roman chose war. Total, unforgiving, scorched earth war. Entered Jon Moxley, the lunatic fringe, the purveyor of violence, the man who literally walked away from WWE at the height of his career because he refused to be controlled, refused to be sanitized, refused to be anything other than the untamed fighter he was born to be. Moxley built an empire of his own outside WWE, becoming one of the most respected and feared competitors in the entire industry. But here's the thing about Jon Moxley: he's never forgotten where he came from. He's never forgotten the battles he fought alongside Roman in the Shield. And more importantly, he's never forgotten that Paul Heyman represents everything he despises about the corporate wrestling machine. The manipulation, the politics, the backstabbing. When Roman reached out to Moxley, it wasn't with promises of glory or championship opportunities. It was with something much more primal: the chance to unleash absolute carnage on Paul Heyman and everyone who stands with him. And for a man like Jon Moxley, that's an offer you simply can't refuse. Quick question for the Wrestling Zone family: do you think Moxley and Roman can actually trust each other after all these years? Let me know in the comments. Now let's talk about Jimmy Uso. This might actually be the most heartbreaking and powerful piece of this puzzle. Jimmy, the man who sacrificed everything for the bloodline. The man who stood beside Roman even when it cost him his relationship with his brother G. The man who absorbed punishment, took losses, and compromised his own career trajectory, all for the sake of family and tribal unity. And how was Jimmy repaid? He was cast out, discarded, treated like he was nothing the moment he dared to question Roman's judgment. The emotional devastation of that rejection has been eating at Jimmy Uso for months. The anger, the resentment, the feeling of worthlessness after dedicating years to a cause that ultimately chewed him up and spit him out. But now, Roman is coming to Jimmy not as the tribal chief demanding loyalty, but as a man who needs his cousin. Roman is acknowledging that he was wrong, that he let power corrupt him, that he pushed away one of the most loyal soldiers he's ever had. This isn't about tribal hierarchy anymore. This is about family coming together to face an existential threat. For Jimmy, this represents something even more significant than revenge against Heyman. This is his chance at redemption. This is his opportunity to prove that he wasn't just a sidekick or an enforcer. is a warrior in his own right, and Paul Heyman's faction is about to learn that lesson the hard way. The dynamics of this alliance are absolutely fascinating from a psychological standpoint. You have three alpha males, each with their own leadership qualities, their own egos, their own methods of warfare. Roman operates with strategic precision and overwhelming dominance. Moxley thrives in absolute chaos and unpredictable violence. Jimmy brings loyalty, family connection, and technical wrestling excellence. On paper, these three should never be able to coexist. Their personalities are too strong, their histories are too complicated, their methods are too different. But that's exactly what makes this alliance so dangerous. Heyman's faction might be expecting Roman to fight with the same predictable patterns, the same hierarchical bloodline structure. What they are not expecting is the unholy fusion of Roman's championship experience, Moxley's unhinged brutality, and Jimmy's desperate hunger for validation. Here's something to consider. What is Paul Heyman thinking right now? The man built his entire reputation on being 10 steps ahead of everyone else. But did he account for this? Did he calculate that Roman would be willing to set aside years of ego and pride to form this alliance? Did he anticipate that Jon Moxley would actually return for this battle? Did he foresee Jimmy Uso being willing to stand beside the cousin who broke his heart? Pop quiz for everyone watching. Who do you think Paul Heyman has recruited for his faction? Give me your wildest predictions in the comments. The implications for professional wrestling as a whole are staggering. If this alliance actually happens, we're talking about a crossover event that transcends company boundaries and brings together some of the most compelling storytelling elements in the industry. We're talking about family drama, corporate betrayal, personal redemption, and absolute violence all colliding in one explosive narrative. Think about the matches this could produce. Roman Reigns and Jon Moxley as a tag team, that's a combination that would make opponents terrified to step in the ring. Jimmy Uso unleashed without the constraints of being just a tag team wrestler, the man could finally show the world his true potential as a singles competitor. And all three of them working together to systematically dismantle Heyman's faction? That's not just entertainment, that's poetry written in violence. But let's be real about the risks here. Alliances born from desperation and revenge are notoriously unstable. How long can Roman, Moxley, and Jimmy actually work together before old wounds resurface? Before egos clash? Before someone makes a strategic decision that fractures this fragile unity? That instability might actually be what makes this so compelling. Every time these three step into the ring together, we're going to be on the edge of our seats wondering if this is the moment the alliance implodes. We're going to be analyzing every glance, every hesitation, every moment of miscommunication, wondering if Paul Heyman's psychological warfare is already working its dark magic. And make no mistake, Heyman is absolutely going to try to destroy this alliance from within. That's what he does. That's his specialty. He's going to whisper poison in ears, exploit old grudges, create situations designed to make these three warriors turn on each other. The question isn't if Heyman will try to fracture this alliance. The question is when, and whether Roman, Moxley, and Jimmy can recognize the manipulation before it's too late. The wrestling world is holding its collective breath right now. This isn't just another faction versus faction storyline. This is a seismic shift in how we think about loyalty, betrayal, and the lengths competitors will go to for revenge. This is about three men who have every reason to be enemies, choosing to become brothers in warfare for one singular purpose, making Paul Heyman and his faction pay for their betrayal. So here's my final question for the Wrestling Zone family. Do you think this alliance can actually succeed in taking down Heyman's faction, or is this doomed to fail from the start? And more importantly, who do you think turns on who first if this alliance falls apart? Drop your thoughts, your theories, your predictions in the comments below. Hit that like button if you're as hyped about this potential alliance as I am. And subscribe to Wrestling Zone if you want to stay updated on every single development in this absolute warzone of a storyline. Share this video with every wrestling fan you know because this is the conversation everyone needs.